Hello, Transurfers and the Transurfing Curious. My name is Renee Garcia, guys, and this is Reality Transplaining with Xavier Waterkeyn. What? Oh my God. Hi, Xavier. We got some big news, don't we?
Yes, we do have some big news. Do you want to say it now, or do you want to keep them waiting?
I don't know. I'm kind of into like instant kind of gratification with it, really.
Yes, most Americans are. Okay,
Yes,
go ahead.
exactly.
Go ahead. It's your culture.
Yes. So yeah, exactly. Instant gratification is definitely the American way.
Unlike Australians that are willing to wait forever. And the British who are willing to wait forever and several days.
Yes. So Xavier Waterkeyn is now officially a reality transurfing instructor representing for Australia. What? Congratulations, Xavier.
Wait a minute.
Yes. How do you feel right now? How do you feel right now?
A little bit as if I've been put through the ringer, because for those of you who want to know, the accreditation process for becoming an instructor, coach, mentor is extremely rigorous. Renee is relentless.
I don't think people realize how cruel I can actually be with the education process.
That's right. Because Renee, of course, has been steeped in this for years and years and years and is a classical transurfer, whereas I'm sort of more, I don't know, I wouldn't call myself a classicist. I'd call it sort of neo-transurfer. Anyway, the point is, it's really hard. She'll grill you mercilessly. There's no end to it. Oh, well, please give me a succinct explanation of the space of variations. Oh, okay. Blah, 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 blah. Is that good enough? You have left out something. Thinking. Go back to your books. Come back. And you just have to keep going until until the great high priestess of transurfing bestows upon you.
Well, it's serious business. I mean,
it is. All joking aside, it's serious business. If you don't get it right, you're going to be telling people the wrong stuff, or you're going to be saying it in a way that might lead to confusion, which is what we don't want. We're always looking for clarity here.
Yes, I mean, we're explaining some pretty complex, concepts to people, and we definitely don't want to, it's interesting how much value one single word can have if out of context, right? I mean,
yeah, and exactly, and it also has its own language, reality transpeak. So I mean,
there's a lot there.
There's a lot there, and part of the reason it's complicated is not necessarily because the ideas themselves are difficult. It's because the ideas are so radically different from the way that normally people address their lives.
Absolutely.
So, and the reason that it's different is because it has to work. Because the only attraction, I'd imagine, the fundamental attraction for reality transurfing or for any reality awakening modality is the reality awakening. The way that people normally operate through life is actually highly inefficient and extremely confusing, and people have horrible lives, or they don't maximize their potential, or they don't fulfill themselves, etc. And they wonder why. And one of the great reasons that it doesn't work is because what's going on in their head. And so a lot of ideas that you have in your head need to be examined.
Got to cut through it.
You've got to cut through it. And then after you've cut through it, you need to replace those concepts with something else that's workable. So you replace those ideas with reality transurfing ideas, and then suddenly, oh, that makes sense. And then you apply those ideas to your life, and you examine whether your life is improving or not. Because if it isn't improving, there's either something wrong with the theory or something wrong with your application of it.
Absolutely. You nailed it. You absolutely nailed it. That's why
I passed. That's why I passed.
So Xavier is going to be helping. Go ahead.
No. I'm just letting everybody know. This is not for everyone, and it is extreme, and it is quite rigorous and challenging. Yes.
Well, I'm happy you
unless
pointed that out.
Unless you're prepared to do the work.
Yes.
Unless you're prepared to do the work, it ain't going to happen.
Don't step to that.
Not in 5 minutes anyway. It might take you months.
Years. So Xavier is going to actually help me put together a couple of courses. We are going to be doing a course on trauma and recovering from trauma and PTSD and all that stuff that kind of gets in our way sometimes of creating our own reality. And we are also going to be doing a course on the 30 Anomalous Action Challenge for those of you really looking to take that challenge to the next level. It is going to be in depth and super cool. And he's also available. I don't want to say, I don't want to, offer you too much here, but for the right people, for the right person, he's available for some one-on-one. So if you're in Australia and are looking to reach out to Xavier, you can email him at xavier@transurfing.us and see what he has to say about your situation. So today, the topic, are you ready to do this?
Oh, am I? I'm always ready.
Okay, so this is going to be kind of like one of those cutting ones for some people, kind of like the money one was for some, for some people.
And we actually haven't finised the money ones. We've got another money one coming up.
Yes.
But right now,
that money one was a doozy, though, huh?
Yes.
Some people got a little triggered with that one. We won't name names.
Oh,
but,
surprise.
So today's going to be another sort of kind of cut to the quick lesson, if you will. We're going to talk about the reasons why people oftentimes don't have what they want or are experiencing reality in a way they don't want to experience it, or are struggling just to sort of get up to ground level or just achieve basic means, right? I mean, these times right now, it's pretty challenging for certain folks, especially if, there was an upheaval in your layer of reality regarding employment or, political stuff with family and all kinds of dynamic, dynamic circumstances due to the times. And I think really what I've seen in the last 2 years is a massive divide in the population. Either people have risen to the occasion and really made lemonade out of the lemons that were handed to them,
and there have been a lot of lemons around.
And there have been a lot of lemons around, absolutely. But then on the flip side of it, either, you kind of rose up, with everything that's happened and you figured out a way to make it work for you, or you did not and maybe plunged to some of those lower levels of reality, those lower layers of reality, and, are struggling for basic survival stuff. So challenging times. And yeah, I mean, there are a lot of reasons from my perspective. I want to hear first yours, Xavier. Let's go over your perception. 3 ways, three areas where people are, I don't want to say failing at transurfing, but 3 ways in which people are, 3 parts that people are not acknowledging that are compromising their layer of reality. Is that a good way of saying it?
Okay, yeah, okay, that's compromising their, well, they're compromising their interaction with reality, because we often say shorthand, you create your reality, but we're not really creating our reality. The realities already exist in the space of variations. What actually is happening is that we are creating our experience of reality through our constant negotiation with that space. So our consciousness interacts with that space in order to transurf our way into a particular reality. Okay, so it's a fundamental thing there. Now, we go back to this analogy of the surfing. Now, in order to surf properly, you need to understand the ocean, right? Outer intention. You need to understand what's happening in the mirror. You also need to understand what's happening within. And then you negotiate between the within and the without.
Yes.
So it's always a negotiation. When a surfer rides a surfboard on a wave, they're working with gravity. They're working with vibration. They're working with wave. They're working with flotation. They're working with the physics of their body. They're working with the physics of the board. So they have to have an understanding of all of the ways that you can interact at that particular human level with the space of variations, because the human level is not the only level in which you can interact with infinity. It just happens to be the one that we're at. Now, fundamental to that is alignment. Reason one, people don't get what they want, if you're wanting three basic reasons, is the lack of alignment. You need to coordinate the heart, the mind, the body, and the spiritual aspect, the higher consciousness. If those things are not in alignment, you will be compromised in your capacity to negotiate with reality. It's like having a car. We go back to this car analogy, one of my favorite analogies, because cars are something that everybody's familiar with. If the wheels are out of alignment, they're not going to go in a straight direction. They have to be in alignment. If the circuitry in the car is not working properly, then you can turn the ignition key and nothing will ignite. Okay? Reality transurfing is like that. Without that alignment, you're not going to get what you want, right? You're not going to get it. It just is just not going to happen, because you're not going to be, because you don't have a functioning car, or you have a car that's wanting to push and pull at the same time. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to balance forces here, right? We're always trying to find the sweet spot in which all the various forces are in balance, not putting too much energy and creating excess potential by pushing your foot on the accelerator too fast at the wrong time. So it's about timing as well. There are all of these things that you have to negotiate.
So let me ask you this. How does a person negotiate those things if they're finding themselves in a dire situation? Or let's say somebody wakes up right now and they come in contact with Reality Transurfing and they start reading it and they think, oh my God, my shit's out of alignment. What do I do? You know, what's a good approach to, like, you know, what is the Reality Transurfing triage? If a person's coming in broken up and busted up and they're, oh my God, my reality sucks and I'm out of alignment, where does a person start?
Okay, the first thing to start is to calm the hell down, right? And we call this dropping importance. Although I have also made the point that in some cultures and some psychologies, you need to raise importance. You might not, you need to find the sweet spot, the Goldilocks zone of importance. And that depends on your own personal psychology. The first thing that I would recommend for anybody to do is to take responsibility for yourself, to examine yourself. The triage has to be diagnostic first. Before you act, you need to understand where you're at. How did I get here? Mm-hmm. What is it that I'm putting out into the world right now that is causing my experience of reality to be, because we're negotiating reality all the time anyway. It's not that we're asking people to do something they're not doing all the time. What we're asking people to do is to do it consciously. Mm-hmm. So conscious awareness has to be the first step, because otherwise you will act. And you will act in an unaligned, uncoordinated way, and you might actually make matters worse. The second, so part of that process is simply being still and opening yourself up to higher guidance, because
tuning to your soul frail.
Tuning to your soul frail. It's the most efficient way of doing it. You've set up a scenario where somebody is in a really bad situation. Obviously, prevention is better than cure. So if you can do all of this work when things are going reasonably well, you're much better practiced for when things start going askew. And it happens to everybody. It doesn't matter how skilled a surfer you are, you can still get dumped by a wave if there is something in your gestalt, your awareness, that is either out of alignment or in a blind spot. And there's nothing much you can do about a blind spot because by definition, it's a blind spot.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, as I want one of the t-shirts to read, an unexamined consciousness is not worth having. So you need to examine your consciousness and you need to get in tune with, I would recommend meditating to your soul frail. Simply ask for higher guidance and allow whatever idea to come to you. That idea might be an awareness, a greater awareness of your current situation. It might be an impulse to act, because without action, you're not going to get anywhere. Surfers don't surf competently just by sitting on their board and chanting Kumbaya. They actually get up onto the board and they balance on the board and they steer themselves through the waves. Now, when you're starting off, you start off with small waves. You change little things, improve something in your life slightly, because you can be overwhelmed. So the second thing is, once you've done that, perhaps you'll get a message, perhaps you won't, but at least the willingness to engage with your soul frail is there. Because depending on your contract with your soul, you might not get what you want because your soul is saying no.
So where do pendulums come into play here? Because like when I hear you saying, you know, sit down and listen to your soul, I mean, what comes to mind for me, obviously, is my own experience when I realized that I was just pendulum food. I was getting ripped apart and things were not the way that I wanted them to be because I had given so much in directions of stuff that wasn't intended for me. So like you said, make a small change, but what if it's something really big, like you have exhausted yourself and your efforts with your employment situation, or you tune into that frail and the frail's like, get a divorce. You know, I'm not telling anyone to get a divorce right now, but I'm just saying, what if it's something really big and there's an upheaval that is needed?
You need to be prepared for an upheaval. You need, if an upheaval is actually needed, and without knowing the specifics of a particular situation or what a person has received from their higher guidance, it's difficult to answer that question. But in a scenario where something major is needed, you need to be prepared to make that choice, to make those decisions and to perform those actions. So you've got three things. One, so to answer your question in summary, one, there is the finding the sweet spot of importance, fine? Mm-hmm. So that, and getting into that, opening yourself up. Two, opening yourself up to the messages that will come from your soul frail. Mm-hmm. Three, create a contract with yourself in which you are willing to take the action that you're receiving intuitively to take. Mm-hmm. So that in a nutshell is like the triage.
Yeah. That's a pretty good formula.
Yeah, it's just like, this is just emergency stuff, because that's what the context in which you were asking the question. Obviously, the whole point of the education that we're trying to give people in terms of negotiating with reality is about never getting to such a point in the first place.
Yeah.
But if you're there, you need to do emergency triage.
Mm-hmm.
But not all medicine is emergency triage. A lot of medicine is surgery, correction of habit. A lot of surgery is a lot of medicine is psychology. A lot of it is just simply gaining skills. Mm-hmm. All of which can be done prior to getting into a really bad state. Mm-hmm.
Like diet and exercise and
all of these things, which are all highly individualistic as well. Again, an unexamined consciousness is not worth having. So the first thing I would recommend that anybody does is examine their consciousness, examine their thought processes, examine their feeling processes, examine their action steps, examine the way that they're currently negotiating reality, and just in a sense of awareness.
Mm-hmm.
You're not castigating yourself, you're not punishing yourself, because when you realize how much you have been played by pendulums, because you asked me about pendulums,
Mm-hmm.
and the reality that things have been sucking you dry.
Mm-hmm.
That awareness might be painful, but it's necessary. Because if your life were going so great, you wouldn't be in this position anyway. That's the blunt truth. Because you haven't examined yourself sufficiently. I'm not saying that you'll automatically find an answer instantly, although you might. It might be a very simple step that your intuition, your soul is asking you to take. It might be a very, very simple thing. And you might think of yourself, how is that going to help? It doesn't make any sense. It's illogical, but it might help. Have you ever read the works of Florence Scovel Shinn?
No.
Okay. She was one of the early on in last century, one of the proponents of what is become known as the New Thought movement, when people started thinking about reality, awakening modalities, and they weren't thinking of those in those terms, but they were beginning to think, wait a minute, there's something big. Neville Goddard was part of the New
Mm-hmm.
Thought movement. There are a whole bunch of other people, even Mr. Think and Grow Rich. All of those people were part of that same movement. The fundamental idea that you are creating your reality, that I prefer to think of, you're negotiating your relationship with reality. Mm-hmm. She had an example in one of her books, I can't remember which one, but basically this person had an apartment that they wanted to rent out. And it was a really good apartment, but nobody was renting it, and she couldn't understand why it was renting out. And Florence basically said what I just said: go into your intuition and ask yourself what needs to be done. The thought came into her head: buy this particular lamp and put it on the table, mm-hmm. in this particular table in the apartment, right? She didn't do it for a while, and then but it took a while for Florence, because she was doing this sort of mentoring stuff as well, and say, well, have you done anything? It says, well, it just didn't seem like, how could that make a difference? And Florence just got out the big guns and said, listen, you are being told what to do. You are being given an instruction. Follow the damned instruction. Just do what your intuition and higher self is telling you. Just do the damn thing. Yep. And so the woman did the damn thing, bought the damned lamp, put it on the damned table, and within a week,
the damn apartment was rented.
It was rented. Exactly.
Simple solutions to complex problems.
Exactly. A complex problem may not have a complex solution. Yeah. That's part of your conditioning, to believe that a complex problem might have a complex solution. No, sometimes it can be really simple, and sometimes it's irrational, because we're operating at a higher level of intuition. We're looking at it might make total sense from that higher perspective. We're just not there yet. Mm-hmm. So we don't necessarily see the higher perspective. But what we can do is we can tune into the higher perspective and ask the consciousness that is at that higher perspective what to do. And then you will hear something and say, do it. Now, I'm not saying that if that higher perspective is saying, shoot your husband, shoot your husband, shoot your husband, that you should go out and shoot your husband, because I would imagine that a thought like that is probably not coming from a good place. And you've opened yourself up to consciousness that may have it in for you.
I don't think your higher self would ever tell you to shoot your husband.
No, because that would be such an incredibly unimaginative solution.
Exactly.
Higher consciousness would come up with something much more creative, much more elegant, much less violent. If it's coming from a good, you'll know how the solution makes you feel. If you suddenly feel uplifted or having some clarity, or even if you're just feeling a little better, odds are it's coming from that higher place. In which case, all I'm saying is buy the damned lamp.
Yeah.
So that in a nutshell answers your question. What's your take on why people don't get? What's your take on that sort of thing?
Well, this is, for me, I'm in a position where so I've seen enough at this point, doing this for the time that I have, I can see when people are participating in actions that are going to give them more of what they want. And then I can see people that are participating in actions and in thoughts and in frequency that are absolutely, you know, like you touched on, reality is a mirror. And, you know, I've seen things before that just, you know, blaring ones, like somebody saying, oh, you know, I would love to take your course, but I'm broke, you know, or I'm so poor, something like that. And I'm just like, oh, don't do that. Like, first of all, the course isn't what's going to help you. What's going to help you is you not saying that anymore, you know? These projections a lot of times that people so easily fall into, you know, like there was a woman in the Facebook group that when the whole COVID thing went down, her business was already floundering and that put her under. And she was just like, well, I'm totally broke now. And business finally did shut down. Thanks a lot, COVID. And I'm like, you know, what's that going to do? So when you are, you know, it's a very cyclical thing, right? You throw something out into the world, your mirror responds, then your mirror, you know, your mirror response gets back to you, and then you agree with that response by saying, yep, well, I guess I'm just broke. And then that goes back, and it's a vicious cycle. You know, it's a vicious cycle.
You're consenting to the offer.
You're consenting to the offer, you're solidifying the image, you're agreeing to, it is like, this is the number one way that I see people struggling to have what it is they want is complaining, agreeing with things like poverty, or I'm unlovable, or I guess that life just isn't, you know, going to be good for me, and expressing these things outwardly.
What I have also found is creating so many conditions.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Especially contradictory conditions that make it impossible to fulfill the contract or to negotiate your way out of that.
Yes. The holding on and holding on tightly, but also wanting to take, like this sort of
when your hands are full.
Exactly, like an unreconciled approach to the mirror where you don't realize that you're embodying exactly what it is that you do not want to see, but at the same time, you're grabbing and the whole thing just absolutely seizes up. And I know this because this is really where I existed for a number of years until things started to improve in my life and I started to get this. But I was just in a constant state of, and this brings me to one of my points, staring at the mirror and just being totally focused on what it is that I don't have and being miserable with that part of my life and embodying that misery of, oh my God, and being just captivated by this negative illusion to the extent
and I've just
where
had an insight.
There's no way out. Go for it.
Yeah, and I've just had an insight. When people do that, when they stare at the mirror, frowny face, ooh, frowny face looks frowny, want to frown more, frowny face, and you're getting caught in that downward spiral, what people are actually creating is a pendulum.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
They are creating a self-reinforcing vortex pendulum in which you just spiral down and you're actually doing it.
Yes.
So people, pendulums just aren't out there. They're in here too. You yourself are a pendulum vortex. You are a thing of activity.
Yes, absolutely.
But this is where you need to raise your consciousness to the point to where you become aware of what you're doing.
And what you're giving what you're giving your thoughts to. So this gets to one of my other points, is the downward and back version of thinking rather than the forward and up version of thinking. So the downward and back version of thinking is like thinking about all the stuff that you don't like, all the stuff that's happened that, you know, is making you a victim, all the stuff that isn't working, all the things that you don't have, and really resonating in that place. And again, like you're saying, it's so true. That mode of operation becomes a pendulum. And when you're caught in that vortex and that's all you're doing, you are like hindering yourself triple fold, right? You're not focusing on what you need to be focusing on, which is the forward and up, all the things that are going right, all the things that you can do, all the things that you are good at, all that kind of stuff. You're caught in that you know, tornado of negative thoughts, so you can't even really see anything outside of that sector of reality that you're highlighting. It's like the example that I always use is negative people. You don't encounter negative people that are consistently negative in their reality, like walking up to you or calling you and being like, hey, my life sucks, but this great thing just happened to me. It doesn't exist, right? Because they can't ever see great things. They can't ever see opportunity. They can't ever see, it's like you absolutely blind yourself. And then the third part of that is you're stuck in this tornado of, you know, undesirable stuff and lower frequency thoughts and actions and all this kind of stuff. Your energy is zapped. So even if something was to come in your direction, the odds of you being able to take action on that are pretty low, right? It's going to take you absolutely acknowledging if you are doing this downward and back version of thinking and focusing solely on the negative. It's going to take you having an epiphany and waking up and dedicating yourself to a shift, a true shift in the direction of your thoughts, actions, and frequency, which I call the forward and up version of thinking, which is like, it's so simple that it's become almost a joke for me, right? Anytime that I start to get depressed or have anxiety or have any kind of thought that something's not working, I immediately acknowledge I'm doing this downward and back version of thinking, that's where that leads me. The way out of that, the way towards what it is that I want, is to shift my focus and really just pay a ton of attention to what is going right, what I can do, what is working, what I do like, what I am good at, and just do that stuff. The other thing that I want to touch on, and this is something that I've been talking a lot about lately, is pendulums, getting people caught in the snare. I did a video on this today of, okay, so the world's this scary, shitty place, and there's good and bad and good and evil, and you need to take a position. You need to take a position, and then you need to defend your position, and you need to judge the other people that are against your position so you can defend your position. And this is what's important right now. And as soon as you've gotten trapped in that snare, you're toast until you can realize you're doing it. Pendulums forcing you into a place of judgment, pendulums forcing you into a place of polarization and division and focusing on political stuff and COVID things and all this stuff. This is a one-way road to nowhere. That's not going anywhere. There's no payout there, right? There is absolutely nothing to be had or benefit from there unless you own a pharmaceutical company or you're a media mogul. Exactly.
Unless your living depends on maintaining that particular force, that particular activity.
Otherwise, you're food. You are pendulum food.
Yeah, exactly. Because we always come back to this idea of this process of continual negotiation. Hold on a second. It seems to be a really one-sided negotiation, this pendulum thing, this thing that's got me enthralled. It's getting all of the attention, it's getting all of the focus of energy, it's getting all of the benefit. What's in it for me?
Exactly.
I'm not getting anything. I'm not getting anything.
Except I put my phone down and feel like crap afterwards.
Yes. Yeah, but there are people who are, again, because they don't know any better, they're addicted to that misery. So if you've got an addiction to misery, you're going to look other ways. Crucial to this is something that you said about having a position.
Mm-hmm.
The moment that you have a position, you're going to seek evidence for that position, because a position is just another way of saying a theory, a thought construct, a narrative, a way of looking at the world. And the mirror will show up with evidence for that theory. I'm miserable. Okay. Here's examples of your misery. If you want the misery, you just keep getting the misery. Oh, now I have more reason to be miserable. Great. And it just keeps spiraling.
You become heart and mind coordinated in misery, and outer intention helps you with that.
Exactly. You've taken the car and you're driving it into ditches and into potholes and crashing into lampposts. And you're wondering, why does this always happen to me?
Oh, no.
Okay. Well, let me count the ways.
Yes.
Great thing about this is that because you are negotiating, you can renegotiate. You can tear up the contract and say, you know what? I'm going to practice some discipline. I'm going to discipline myself not to do this.
It's amazing. I've been doing this for 6 years, and I just had the most amazing insight right at this moment.
Share, please.
Oh my God. This is it. It just blew my mind. It just blew my mind apart. Pendulums have the ability to take so much from us, and they're so powerful right now. You think of things like politics, social media, health related things. These pendulums are so powerful, but what's the one thing that they lack that you have as an individual? What would you guess?
The power to say no.
Oh my God. We are the only one as an individual in that scenario that has the power to renegotiate the deal and actually change it. The pendulum doesn't have any power in that. The individual is absolutely in the driver's seat, 100%, 100%. There's the pendulum can use tricky means to try to hook you back in. But again, you are absolutely in a position to either take that or leave it, right?
I think.
Do you agree?
I agree. I'm just wondering whether I want to take this conversation in a particular direction that I wanted to leave for a discussion about pendulums later. I suppose I can introduce it now, and obviously not everybody's going to watch every video, so I'll talk about this very briefly. Pendulum, the image of a pendulum is of a thing that's going back and forth. It has a rhythmic pulse. It is creating a vibration. Now that's all well and good, but pendulums are really more, from my perspective, like stars or like astronomical bodies. Now, a star, like the big one that we're circling, can give life. If you find its sweet spot, if you find yourself in the Goldilocks zone. Pendulums are not all bad, all evil.
No,
we tend to see them that way because there are so many bad ones around. But let's just talk about this briefly. So you're negotiating movement through the cosmos. And say you're a spaceship now, or a planet even, okay? the planet Earth revolves around the sun at a sweet spot where it's neither too hot nor too cold. But that's only a very narrow band around that star. Anything outside of that, life doesn't happen. It's too cold or it's too hot. Easy, easy, right? But it does give life. But if you get too close to it, it will burn you. And that's very true of a lot of pendulums.
Yes.
If you get too close, they will burn you.
Yes.
If you maintain the sweet spot, you can actually derive something from them. Because, and I don't mean to insult the sun, because I'm sure that the sun is an extremely conscious being that has its own agenda and its own consciousness. But let's just, for the sake of this conversation, say the sun is a big dumb beast. Right? It shines, but also has a gravity field. It will suck you in. You get too close, it will suck you in. It will, because that's its nature. You get too close to any negative, and many negative pendulums aren't even like stars. They're more like black holes. They just suck. They just grab you. They grab you, and then you're gone. However, there is such a thing. For example, have you ever heard of a slingshot orbit?
I believe I have, but refresh my memory.
Okay, so basically, a rocket going to another planet in our solar system, the distances are huge. Our rockets are much too slow. So what they do is that the very clever rocket scientists work out a way of getting very close to a planetary body. And as you get really, really close, you accelerate and you accelerate and you actually get faster. And then if you just hit the right angle, you don't crash into the planet, but you actually get a boost in your speed.
Because it pulls you.
That is actually a really, yeah, exactly. That's actually a really good way to negotiate with pendulums. You understand the dynamics of the pendulum. You look at it and you say, I can get something out of you to accelerate my movement. Now, this is not ordinary transurfing. This is a little bit more advanced, but usually what you can do is you find that sweet spot gravitationally, you can just zoom in and it looks as if you're going to crash, but because you've got that angle just right, you're going to zip past and you're going to go faster in the direction you want to go.
Okay, so can you give us an example?
All right, in real life, for example, what are we doing now? We're using the media pendulum, right?
Yes, exactly. I was going to actually suggest that we use this as an example because we're taking the better end of that.
Yeah, we're saying we don't have to behave like other media pendula.
Yeah.
Penduli.
Penduli.
Penduli. Actually, but we're not speaking Latin. Pendulums. So.
Not yet.
Yes, not yet. Sic transit gloria mundi. So what happens is we are assuming that we're taking the best of the media pendulum and also the best of the relatedness that it can happen. We are creating, to some extent, the illusion of intimacy. People think that they know us a little better because we reveal ourselves. But the reality is that's an illusion. I don't really know the millions of people watching. They don't know me. They have only this image, but we're constructing an image in order to benefit ourselves because we do get something out of these interactions. You suddenly got, after doing this for 6 years yourself, a revelation.
Yes.
Right? So it's helping us. Hopefully these conversations also help other people and something sparks and something awakens them. For example, the major revelation that we have the power to say no. We have the power to steer our spaceship close to the pendulum without crashing into it. We can choose the best part of the media and say, it's a great tool. Let's not get so involved in our own wonderfulness that we begin to believe our own press.
Yeah.
Because that can destroy us. Let's not abuse this power. Let's not enthrall people to the point where this is their one and only focus of life.
Yeah.
Of life. Take from this the wisdom and say, understand what's going on, maintain that sweet spot of detachment and say, okay, they're just people, they're just talking about ideas. I'm going to take what works and I'm going to throw out what doesn't work because what doesn't work might work later, but it's not just now, all that sort of stuff. It could be anything. It could be your job. Right? You could say, I'm here. If you say, I'm in it for the money,
Yeah.
until I find something better, then stay clear on that. I'm in
Yes.
it for the money until something better comes along, until I surf my way to a better job
Yes.
or a better way of negotiating with reality where I might not even need a job,
Mm-hmm.
or I might need to make so little money because I've got so many other things in place where I can get my needs met without needing a huge amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, I can create in another space because the creation happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always that sweet spot of interacting with
Well, this is,
pendulums.
yeah, I mean, this is, I'm doing a pendulum series, which will already probably have finished on TransurfingTV. And I wanted to go into this, and I think I'll actually do a bonus lesson because I'm taking this as a sign. Vadim Zeland says in the book that pendulums are the gods of dreams, right? There's no way for us to accomplish our intentions without pendulums. There just isn't.
We need to orbit a star that warms us.
We need to orbit a star that
be...
warms us, absolutely. But this is your point with the media is a perfect one. It's like, use it to benefit you. Make certain that you are getting the better end of the deal, because if you do not have what it is that you want in your life right now, anything, it's probably because a pendulum is tapping you to the extent that you don't have the energy to go after it. You don't have the ability to see outer intention coming in your direction to give you that thing because your focus is on the pendulum, and the pendulum is creating your reality for you. And I have absolutely fallen into this mode of operation. And it's, as we discussed in the beginning, it's kind of like a triage sort of situation. You have to assess the quickest and easiest way to get the pendulum off you, at least to start, and then start working in the direction, since you have that little boost of consciousness and energy that you can then apply to new direction or a new modus operandi, or at the very, very least, stop being so damn captivated with the mirror and turn your gaze inward to how you can work out within yourself what it is that you intend to have, so your mirror at least has an opportunity to give that reflection back to you. Because as long as you're staring at the news, this is another one that I absolutely love, and I didn't mention this, I touched on judgment briefly, but people that come on to TransurfingTV or ITI and have nothing but criticism for me or Transurfing, it's like, well, I don't even know where to start, but the first thing that comes to mind is there's something good here that's offering something, yet what you see and how you are engaging with that thing, ultimately, it's only a pendulum that's causing you to reinforce that negative reality that isn't serving you well, that led you to actually seek out answers in the first place, yet you don't accept those answers. You fall into the thing that's supposed to be there to provide you some answers that you searched for, in a way that it's a pendulum just taking more. Do you get what I'm saying here, or did I totally lose that?
I think that's a little naive, and I think that, to your credit, you think that people always come at things with good intentions. My experience is that the spectrum of intentions is huge. Some people come at things with a very positive intention. Some people come with a very negative intention. Some people come to anything just because they're spoiling for a fight, because it makes them feel alive, because the fight makes them feel valid. People get listened to. They're trying to become their own pendulum. Listen to me, listen to me, listen to me.
Wait, but don't you think that the troll hater still has just a little tiny 1% of higher self going, no, don't be a troll hater. Here, transurfing, it might help
Yes,
you.
because
But then the
yes,
other
because
99% is like, oh, I'm going to rip this apart. And
okay, and that makes sense because that 1% has led them to this particular thing to troll rather than trolling anything else. There's like a
yes,
billion channels. There's a billion things that people could troll. They choose to troll this. Why are you choosing to troll this? Could you have been led here? Can you lead? We can lead the horses to water, but we can't make them drink. We can lead the whores to culture, but we can't make them think.
are you saying
So
horses or whores?
both the whores to culture, but we can't make them think. It's a famous quote from, forget her name. It'll come to me in a minute. Anyway, Dorothy Parker. That's right. So anyway, so Dorothy said that, and I always use that instead because yes, you can lead anybody to something, but you can't force them because they're in a state, as you alluded to earlier. If you're in a state where you become deaf or blind to what's being offered to you, a good positive thing, you will twist that into something horrible because that's what you're doing. You're turning this wonderful steak into second-grade mincemeat because that's what you do.
Yes.
Stop being a mincer.
And then you're eating it and you're throwing it up and you're
and you're criticizing. Yeah, exactly, because you're addicted to that unhappiness for whatever reason.
Yes.
I don't know because
let me ask you this. Do you believe that the person struggling now to have what it is that they want, a meaningful romantic relationship, stable income, even a state of being that they know is out there and they want to connect with, but for some reason they just can't seem to connect with it, is it safe to say that, and I know this is a gross generalization here and there's a lot of spaces in between, but is it safe to say that the majority of people not getting what it is they want in their reality is because of an addiction to a particular state of being that they just can't shake or kick?
It's certainly a major contributor. It stands to reason that if you're a really bad heroin addict, you're not going to be able to hold a job for very long because you're going to be wanting the heroin all the time and you'll be willing to lie, cheat, and steal from your grandmother in order to get the hit, because that pendulum has got sucked you in so deeply that it's going to be very hard to extract you from that black hole.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that it's certainly a major contributing factor, but the problem with any huge generalization where there's a lot of spaces is that it is a generalization. However, within the terms of that, if you're addicted to the opposite of the solution, you're going to keep materializing the opposite of the solution.
Like Einstein says, the solution to a problem cannot be seen in the same state that the problem was created, right?
Yes, I think the original quote was, you cannot solve a problem with the same level of intelligence that got you into the problem in the first place.